Hi everybody, welcome to the channel, or welcome back. I'm Amy, and I hope that you're doing well. Let me know how you're doing in the comments. Today we are talking about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is very apt because it's actually Valentine's Day when I'm filming this. So talking about books that we love on the day of love is perfect. We are talking about a series that I just kind of came across at the right time. I was at my local library and I randomly came across it. I'd never heard of it before, but I read the summary inside the first book and I was like, this sounds really unique and interesting. And my mind was just blown. I fell in love with it. And I am talking about the fantasy series, the Daevabad Trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. She's also known as Shannon Chakraborty with her Amina al-Sarafi series, but I feel like I have put Chakraborty on a pedestal as far as authors go because I absolutely love her writing. She is an automatic buy author. She puts something out, I'm gonna buy it. I love this series so much, and I'm gonna get more into the meat of it in a minute, but I am so excited to talk about this with you. So just let me rant about it for a little bit, and I'll be able to give you a little bit more about why you should read it and why I loved it so much, and hopefully you will enjoy my rant as much as I do, and I will convince you to read it. And if you have read it, absolutely let me know. I would love to chat about it with you, but let's get into this. All right, first off, let me show you the commitment that you're going to have to make. It is just a trilogy. They are a little bit beefy, but honestly, I devoured this, I think, within a couple of weeks. I was just kind of having to lay in the bed due to illness, and I had the time on my hands, but honestly, I feel like I would have devoured it either way. But we are starting with the first book, which is The City of Brass. There we go, The City of Brass, and a fantastic intro to the series. And then we have the sequel, which is a little bit bigger, and that is Kingdom of Copper. I love these covers. They're so unique and colorful and intricate. And then, of course, we have the third book, which is the largest, and that is Empire of Gold. And yes, that is a signed copy. That's the only one I have signed. There's also a novella that comes after the series that just kind of continues on with some stories in the world. I have not read this yet. I know I need to read it, but that is the kind of commitment that you're having to make as far as what books you're going to have to read. All right, a little bit about the books. This is a very action-packed and rich world that is Middle Eastern inspired and Islamic inspired. And in this fantasy series, we are dealing with djinn and djinn magic. There are very complex politics. There's an intricate magic system. We're dealing with religious issues, political issues. We're dealing with racial and ethnic issues. There's a lot going on here that reflect real world situations. And I feel like that makes the book that much better because it is just so grounded in situations that we can relate to in our day and age. So again, this is a very political fantasy. So if that is going to deter you, I don't know if this would be for you, but I would still recommend it because it is done in such a way that makes it very relatable. Getting into the story, we are following our main character, Nari, and we are in 18th century Cairo, Egypt. And Nari is kind of a con woman. She kind of does these like spiritual acts and practices like palm readings and healings and everything, but everything is just a ruse and an act. But one day, she accidentally actually summons an ancient Jinn warrior named Dara, and she is thrust into this magical world. And Dara and Nari have to travel to this ancient magical city, the city of Daevabad, or the Brass City, for safety. So we are kind of just thrust into it right at the beginning, and that just makes it that much more exciting and just really draws you in because the action is from the get-go. I think that's what really drew me in was that there was action from the get-go, and we had a really interesting female main character that I just kind of fell in love with. She's very morally gray, obviously, with her being a con artist, but I just love that we were kind of just thrown into the situation and we're just learning the world along with Nari. And I really loved that style of world building. I will get into the fantasy tax of it in a little bit, but that is pretty much kind of the gist of what is going on. But let's go a little bit deeper. So within this city of Daevabad, this magical city, there are six different djinn tribes, which really creates a lot of division and tensions within the city and definitely has a lot of political implications. And Nari is having to navigate this new world along with our other POV in the first book, which is Ali, who is already somebody who is established in this magical world. So within the complexities of this world building, you really get to see elements that reflect real world situations. For example, the religious issues that are going on in this book. And I feel like it is very apt and very relatable to the conflicts going on in the Middle East right now. So it is a very prevalent topic right now. And you get to see in the book how religious beliefs, people can weaponize it and use their belief systems in order to cause destruction. Corrupt government is also a prevalent topic that is discussed in this book, and you really get to see it kind of in the inner workings of the court politics, and you see it with how absolute power can change people and the lengths that people are willing to go to in order to maintain their power. It is intense and it is in your face, but it is such a intriguing and thrilling read, and it is difficult at times to read, but it just makes you want to know what is going to happen next. Our magic system is very much rooted in djinn mythology, and it is very much rooted in like elemental abilities and bloodlines of people. And within these different tribes, there are different magical abilities, and there are things like fire wielding and healing. So it can vary between people based on the tribe that they come from. The magic in this world can be really dangerous to use. It is very much politically influenced. It can be affected by ancient artifacts. There are a lot of things that go into affecting the magic and how people wield it. And it is very much a kind of power grab. People are using it in order to have power over people. And I think that is such an amazing use of magic within a fantasy book because you're able to reflect how people with power, people with more privilege, with more ability, more resources, whatever you would want to equate it to, it shows how that power can corrupt people. And if you don't use it for the betterment of those around you, you will end up using it for destruction and eventually your own downfall. And I feel like Chakraborty does a really good job of using the magic system for those purposes. But the magic system itself is absolutely fascinating and so much fun to read. Our magical knowledge is definitely going to grow and change with the story, and it definitely adds depth to the plot as the magic grows because by the end of it, it is just kind of like this epic, bigger than life sort of magic, and we have some really epic moments with it. So I really love the magic system of this series just because it has so many variations to it. It is very intricate, but it's not too complicated to understand. It's just knowing that there kind of are some different magic systems because there are different elemental abilities. So just keep that in mind. Let's get into a little bit more about the writing style of Chakraborty because I feel like that's what really sucked me into this world. Her writing is really dynamic. It's really well balanced from the micro situations to the macro, the individual to like world affecting implications. I feel like her writing is filled with the unexpected. You never quite know how she's going to turn the story. And she is very well researched. And I'll get into a little bit more of that soon, but let's get into how dynamic her writing is. I feel like her writing is very dynamic because within the Daevabad trilogy, we are dealing with conflicts that are very character driven, and the characters definitely evolve for better or worse. And it is affecting the story to where it gives that kind of unpredictability. And I feel like it really gives the story this kind of larger than life scale because each decision has its own implications and can have a domino effect where you don't quite know how this one decision over here really affects so much that can happen even from the first book all the way into the third book. And I just loved that aspect about it. Again, because this is a character-driven series, it is filled with the unexpected. Situations can change very quickly, and I love that aspect about it. The character decisions and the character arcs themselves, the individual character stories, can go to places that are kind of controversial. Again, there's a lot of gray morality within these books. We don't really get like perfect, polished, happy endings necessarily, which I feel like grounds it and just makes it feel that much more real. And I really love that aspect about her writing. And again, it's just filled with the unexpected. I said that Chakraborty's work is well balanced, and I feel that way because from the individual thoughts and decisions of the characters, you really feel how it is affecting the world. I feel like the decisions of the characters are very well thought out and how it builds to the greater picture of the world. And it really does have like a follow through from the beginning of the series to the very end. And you can just tell that a lot of thought went into it. And because of that, you do have to balance the importance of the situations of the individual as well as looking at the bigger picture of the story. And I feel like you really see that within her writing. The last part that I love about her writing, I said she is very well researched, and Chakraborty is a total nerd about her writing, and I absolutely love that about her. She is so well researched, and you can even check on her website the books, the references that she uses for her world building to create this rich and deep world. And she even has on her social media like the books and references that she is still using as she continues to write her Mina al-Sarafi series. So you can go look on her website. There's a huge list of books and references. And I just love that about her. She just totally embraces it. She's got the receipt. She's like, here, I'm showing you. I didn't just come up with this, but it's very much like rooted in mythology and history. And I just love that. There is some incredible character work, and the characters feel just so relatable because they are imperfect, even if they are like a centuries old magical being. And we have kind of like three main POVs. We get two POVs in City of Brass, and in the second and third book, we get three POVs. We have Nari, we have Ali, and we have Dara. First up, we have Nari, who I've already talked about a little bit. She is a strong and very bold FMC, and I absolutely love her as a character. She's probably one of my favorite characters that I have ever read. She definitely starts out morally gray and stays that way through a lot of the story, but definitely starts out that way, of course, being a literal con artist. But she definitely grows into her own, and she is someone who really wants to stand up for what is right, even when it feels impossible. I really admire that about her. I feel like she would make a really great friend. She can be harsh, she can be blunt, but she is someone who is going to stand up for you and is going to be with you until the very end. And I really love that about her. So yes, and anytime someone asks me a question like, who would you want as a friend, as a character, I always say Nari because she's an incredible female main character. Next up is Dara, who is one of our male main characters, the first one that we meet in City of Brass. And Dara is this centuries old djinn warrior who is hard and tough on the outside, but on the inside, he is definitely a soft person. And I really love that about him. And we really go on an emotional journey with Dara that is very compelling but very frustrating sometimes. And he has some really beautiful relationships with different characters in the story, but they are very complicated. He is a complicated character, of course, being centuries old. And he is a character that you just want to root for, that you will fall in love with, but he is going to frustrate you sometimes. He's going to make some bad decisions, but we love him anyway. Our other male main character is Ali, and he is a character that is going to annoy you at the beginning, but he grows on you. He grows into his own, and he is a character that I really admire. He really grows and evolves as he sees the corruption that is in his world and how he is wanting to change that. And like I said, I don't want to give too much away. I'm just kind of trying to give you a little synopsis of the main characters, but He is definitely one that is going to annoy you in the beginning. Like I said earlier, Chakraborty definitely sees the importance of coming down to even the micro, including our villains and even down to the side characters. The villains are going to be ones that you absolutely hate and will shock you about the depths that they're willing to go to, but they are so compelling, so well written. You're going to love to hate them, but they are going to shock you, absolutely. And the side characters, even the side characters are so cared for in how they are written, and I feel like I loved some of them just as much as the main characters. So I feel like that says a lot about her writing. And yeah, with characters that I love, that's going to compel me to read the story. And in Daevabad, you're going to get some really great characters. Let's talk about how the story kind of progresses through each book. So, of course, City of Brass being our first book, it is the introduction to the world, but I feel like there is enough action and story that we are given where it is hooking you in and keeping you interested. And like I said earlier, I'm going to talk about the fantasy text. This is a medium fantasy text. I feel like the world building is done really well, but there is a little bit of info dumping. I kind of rate my fantasy text like a high, medium, and low. I feel like this is a medium where you are learning the world along with our female main character, Nari, but there is a little bit of info dumping. And Chakraborty likes to get really descriptive with how she talks about the world, definitely the visuals of the world. There are lots of minarets. I'm going to warn you about that. She talks about minarets a lot, which are these kind of like tall towers that we associate with like mosques and Islamic architecture. That's very much a big part of the city of Daevabad. So just be ready for a lot of minarets. So being the first book, this is a really great introduction to the world, and it grabs you from the beginning with the action, but it holds you and keeps you interested through the story. But by the end of the first book, you're going to want to dive into the second book. I'm not going to say why, but you are absolutely going to love the first book because it just thrusts you into this magical world. And yeah, you're going to want the second book very soon. The second book, Kingdom of Copper, can be a little bit slower in the beginning. This is definitely a book that is building towards the kind of epic finale of the trilogy in the third book, but there is still action and epic moments that keep you interested. There are definitely moments that are going to keep you on your toes. So definitely be ready for that. But just know that the second book is going to be a little bit slower. Now, the third book, Empire of Gold, is epic. It goes to a scale that is just kind of unbelievable. The world just expands and grows and just kind of is mind blowing. And Chakraborty definitely makes some decisions with the conclusion of the story that are, like I said earlier, kind of unexpected. But I feel like even in this fantastical world where all of these magical and epic things are happening, I feel like she still has these conclusions that make the story feel real and relatable and grounded. And I love that balance of fantastical and kind of relating on a human level and relatable that she has in her writing. So that's kind of the gist of how the flow of the books are going to go. And I feel like it's a really good balance. It keeps you interested, but just know that the story is going to kind of ebb and flow as far as its driving plot. So of course, all of these books are going to be 5 stars for me. I obviously have ranted about it for a good bit, so I obviously am highly, highly recommending it. I feel like if you haven't read it, you're kind of missing out. I really do feel that way about it. We are getting something that is such a rich world that is immersed in a beautiful culture, the Middle Eastern culture. We're getting Egyptian influence, we're getting Islamic influence. There's just so much rich world building in this. And like I said, you're definitely missing out if you haven't read it. Like I said, this is very political, so just something to be aware of if that's going to deter you. And definitely check your trigger warnings with this. I always say that about my books, but definitely just for your own peace of mind, check them. There are definitely elements of violence and there is death, among other things. So yes, for your peace of mind, go and check that. But just know that this is something that I absolutely love. So if you really hated it, like, you know, you can voice your opinion in the comments, but just know that I'm probably not going to change my mind about it, so don't feel like you gotta preach to me about it or anything. But if you haven't read it and this has interested you, definitely let me know. And if you have read it and you loved it, I definitely want to chat about it with you. So let's meet down in the comments, and I just hope that you enjoyed this rant, this chat as much as I did. This is more of a rant than a chat. I went into it, but I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye!